This LEAP writing video will discuss the meal format and how to write clear and organized paragraphs. The meal format is a mnemonic that helps writers organize a successful paragraph and remember the steps in doing so. This formula is used to ensure that each sentence within a paragraph helps to create connections that enhance reader understanding. The M in meal stands for the main point or topic sentence. Sometimes there can be more than one. E stands for the evidence that you pull in often from other sources. A is going to be your analysis of that evidence, which is mostly your interpretation. And L will be your link or transition to conclude the paragraph and signal what is coming next. When is it good to use the meal format? Except for introductions and conclusions, most paragraphs can benefit from this structure. Although, just because you use it once doesn't mean you have to follow that for all of the paragraphs in an essay. Paragraph serves as clusters of information that support the thesis statement or main claim in an essay. And sometimes we forget that when we're writing or go off on tangents. So this structure will help bring us back to our focus to help keep it clear and organized throughout. The meal format will help to create clear and focused paragraphs that organize your thoughts and enhance the ease of reading for your audience, which is most important because your readers aren't able to think in your thoughts, and when they're reading something, you're often not there for them to ask you questions. So being as clear as possible will help your writing be successful. The first thing is the main idea. So some things to think about when you include this introduction or topic sentence is that it usually goes at the beginning of the paragraph. A topic sentence will define the main idea of the paragraph right from the start. This sentence will aim to let your readers know exactly what this paragraph is about and what it will focus on. Sentences that do not support the topic sentence can destroy the overall cohesion of a paragraph. Writing this sentence first can help you to link each of the following sentences back to this main idea to create greater cohesion and clarity. Sometimes it doesn't always work out this way, so if you do go back and write this sentence after the fact, go through all of the following sentences to make sure you can create some type of connection back to it. Evidence comes next, and there are many different types of evidence that can be incorporated into an essay. Choosing the right type of evidence will be an important part of the drafting process. Many writers like to decide on their evidence before they begin writing. This helps to ensure that they have the support necessary for communicating their ideas. Often, we start writing a paper with our ideas and have a hard time finding evidence that support it directly. So thinking about that could help save some time researching. Some types of evidence to look for would include quotes or paraphrased statements from authority figures, facts from credible sources, case studies or specific examples, or personal experiences and observations, although these should be used sparingly. In some types of writing, it is considered inappropriate to bring in personal experiences or perhaps unprofessional. So definitely think more about this one before adding this type of evidence to any writing. Some specific examples of evidence for a quote or paraphrase would be something like this quote from George Washington, when he said, "To encourage literature and the arts is a duty to which every good citizen owes his country." So because George Washington is a well-known figure, this can be a helpful citation to include as an example to support your ideas. Facts from credible sources can also help. This one, from a scholarly article, wrote that 97% of business leaders rate creativity as increasingly important in the US workplace. So thinking about where you're finding your sources and including those citations will make your evidence more credible which thus makes you yourself as a writer more credible. And case studies or specific examples are another type of example that you can use for evidence. And in this case, I chose the Red Sand Project because it is a work of arts advocacy which provides opportunities for people to connect and take action against human trafficking. After you have your evidence, you'll want to analyze it. And this ensures that your readers will get the same message that you did from that evidence. If we just leave the evidence there without any explanation, our readers will often take it in a direction that we didn't necessarily intend. The first thing to think of with analysis is that it can be a type of interpretation or justification that explains how the evidence connects to the claim. Analysis shows readers why the evidence provided is reasonable and appropriate, and it explains what the evidence means and why it's important to consider. So when you're thinking about analysis, you can think of answering the how, why, and what questions surrounding the evidence that your readers might have. Thinking about questions that they might have and writing those answers can help you assume their knowledge level on the topic and that you're going to speak to them correctly. Analysis examples can be helpful to look through. And the analysis portion of your paragraph may be one sentence or it may be many sentences long. It depends on the topic and the text. The length will depend also on the type of evidence you have, your audience, and the assignment guidelines. A few ways to consider analyzing the evidence you've presented would be to summarize the evidence in your own words, to help readers make the same connections and conclusions that you have, to include further details about the context of the evidence. You may need to further define or explain certain content for the evidence to make sense to your readers, especially if they're not familiar with the topic. Stating your own interpretations of the evidence can be helpful. Using logical reasoning, try to explain what you think this evidence means. And last, explain the connection of this evidence to your overall purpose for writing, considering the language perhaps from your thesis. And L is the last point, which stands for links or transitions. Similarly to how we might link a rope when rock climbing, we need to think about how we can do this for our readers as well, so that they have something to grab onto to know what's coming and see where they've been. So a few things to consider. Are your paragraphs clearly linked to one another? This can help make connections more clear, even when you think that they're making sense in your mind. Links help to answer the question, why does this information matter? So if you're thinking about how to move on from a statement you just said, you could answer that question as a linking sentence. Linking sentences can also help to conclude a paragraph and signal a shift to a new topic. So sometimes you're ending a topic and you're going into a related topic that's easy to transition into. Sometimes you're ending a section and you can't necessarily transition into that very smoothly. In that case, you can just link back to your main thesis. Sometimes you don't even need a full sentence. Simple words and phrases can help readers find clear connections between your ideas. A few linking terms that can go at the start or in between two sentences would be however, in contrast, thus, since, further, for example, similarly, or even though. This paragraph example will show a complete paragraph using the Meal formula so that you can see all of the pieces and how that might work, although every paragraph will look different. The main idea is stated first. Public art often creates an important space for community building to take place. So now we know that this is going to be the topic for this paragraph, and all of the other ideas following it will support this idea. Also notice how the terms are used repetitively in this paragraph so that people are able to see and make those connections. The evidence will come next. And in this case, I have 2 sentences for the evidence because I think it's important to provide some evidence about why this author that I'm using is credible. So remember that that can be another important key to find as evidence examples. In this case, Doug Borwick, a leading advocate for community engagement in the arts, argues that many of today's communities lack cohesion. Borwick believes that art can become the fabric of communities and a tool for breaking down cultural barriers. So while none of these are necessarily my ideas, they present evidence that support my ideas, that show that others agree with me. The analysis comes next. And here I talk about my interpretation of what I think this evidence means. This evidence suggests that communities can benefit from public art because art provides opportunities for discussions and dialogue that can lead to greater understanding and cultural awareness. In this case, my analysis is 1 sentence, but it easily could have been 3 or 4. The link is the last piece, which draws a conclusion to this topic and links back to the thesis. As a result, public art opportunities should be considered and implemented when a community is in need of cohesion. So to sum up this video, I want to emphasize the art of the paragraph. Because paragraphs are small works of art, and every paragraph is completely unique to its author. There are no guidelines for the best length of paragraph. Length will depend on the topic and the situation. And meal should be considered as a helpful structure, but not as a forced or necessary component in all instances. Once you get going and have this practice under your belt, you'll feel free to be more creative and still be thinking about linking back to that structure in new ways, and that's okay. Paragraphs are important, and thinking about them as art can help you enjoy the process of writing them.